Day one, as soon as I take office, day one. You can call it deported if you want. The press doesn't like that term. You can call it whatever the hell you want. They're gone. Their days have run out in this country. The crime will stop. They're going to be gone. It will be over.
Here with reaction tonight, Pinal County Sheriff from Arizona, Paul Babiou, Trump campaign surrogate, AJ Delgado, and Fox News contributor, Mercedes Schlapp. It's great to see you all. First to you, Sheriff. Donald Trump really put meat on the bones, I thought, last night of his immigration position, did a lot of research, came up with numbers like this, which actually, I follow it, I was still shocked by this. According to the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, there are 25,000 non-citizens, illegal and otherwise, in jail right now for homicide. 25,000. Were you shocked by that number?
Not really. We've had murderers actually released right in my county. And then they tell me, the sheriff, 2 weeks after the fact. And all of these aren't from every sheriff in Arizona came together when they released 2 murderers into Arizona in one day. And then another for ag assault. And guess where they were from? Not one of them was Hispanic. They were from Sudan, Iraq, and Russia. And they released that Russian murderer in my county after he brutally stabbed somebody, then doused him with gasoline and lit him on fire to torture him to his death. And when you let a guy like that out, what do you think he's going to be doing?
Well, exactly. That's exactly right. And thank you, by the way, for pointing out that immigrant is not a synonym for Hispanic. They are not the same thing. It's a legal question, a status question. So
the system is broken.
Exactly. AJ, 25,000 murders. I see Democratic politicians move to tears about the dangers of e-cigarettes. And yet I never hear anybody mention this. Why is that?
Right. Well, because there's this constant idea that if somehow you bring up immigration, you bring up enforcing our laws, it'll be perceived as racist. It's politically completely incorrect. And the beauty of the speech last night is Donald Trump laid out the case that immigration isn't really so much a political issue or even strictly an economic issue. It's a safety issue. I think a lot of people listening last night woke up to that and started looking at it through that lens.
So, Mercedes, there are a bunch of states, Texas and New Mexico come to mind, where there are Mexican-American, Hispanic families whose families have been in the U.S. for literally hundreds of years. They're, in every sense, more American than I am. They listened to this speech last night. Why wouldn't it resonate with them? Why wouldn't they, I mean, why would this be off-putting to people like that? It's not clear why it would be.
Well, I think it's important to understand that in the case of, for example, some of the GOP Hispanics who felt that maybe have been on the fence about Donald Trump, and although immigration might not be their top issue, it's a very important emotional issue for them.
Yes.
And I think what's important to note is that I think they wanted a sense of a softer tone, maybe a more compassionate tone when it came to especially addressing maybe even legal immigrants who contribute and make America great. And so I think that was the part of the speech. And while I think the speech was very important in addressing, you got to enforce our immigration laws. Look, these liberal pundits that are pushing forward that illegal immigration is a status quo, that needs to stop. I think there was a sense from many Hispanics that let's talk about that we are a country of immigrants. Goodness gracious, Mr. Trump's mom was an immigrant.
Right.
I think that's a missing piece that I wish that Donald Trump and many GOP Hispanics would have included.
Well, that may be an interesting point. If you read this speech, and of course Trump has married a number of immigrants. I mean, he's clearly pro-immigrant. I think all Americans are. If you read this speech, it's really hard to see anything anybody would disagree with. So maybe that's right. Maybe the tone really matters. Anyway, thanks. I'm being told we got to go. Sadly, interesting conversation. Thanks for joining us, all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming of differences between a press conference and talking to the press everywhere you go.
Imagine having to defend that. 270 days without a press conference. But if you're Hillary Clinton's running mate, you have to nod and say, that's okay. But is it?
To bring back your jobs, which we have to have back, and we want them back soon. We're going to negotiate fair trade deals that put American workers back to work, that put America first.
Mr. Donald J. Trump, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Hannity program. I'm Tucker Carlson, filling in tonight. That was, of course, Trump campaigning earlier today in the state of Ohio. He's having a very good week so far, and now he's closing the gap, apparently in a bunch of new polls with Hillary Clinton. The latest from Fox News shows the presidential rivals in a virtual tie. Keep in mind, it's a four-way race with Gary Johnson and Jill Stein out on the fringes. Clinton still has a slim lead, but it's within the margin of error. Is this a trend? Joining us now is someone who has run for president a couple of times, knows a ton about politics, and is watching this race really carefully. He is former Arkansas governor and our friend Mike Huckabee. Governor, it's great to see you tonight. So, is this movement real? It appears to be. You're better grounded in this than I. And if it is real, what's to account for it?
Well, Donald Trump's had a great week. I think the trip to Mexico, the manner in which he handled that. I thought his speech last night was amazingly powerful. And I just don't understand the people on the left who don't like America very much and resent it when a candidate for the American presidency actually lifts up the country and says, I'll put America first. I kind of thought that was what he was supposed to do. But one of the things I think a lot of people don't understand about a poll, I always looked at polls not so much as a predictor of where things were going, but rather a reading of where they had just been. And so if you look at a poll showing that Trump is beginning to catch up to Hillary, that he's closing the gap, I think it's a better indication of the fact that he's having a good week. Hillary Clinton's having a terrible week. Look, Hillary's harder to find than Amelia Earhart right now. She's just not out there on the campaign trail. I
think she's been captured by the
Donald
Japanese.
Trump's everywhere.
Yeah.
Very possible.
So, I mean, I want to get back to what you said a second ago, because I think it's insightful, like most things that you say, that Trump is making a case for America, and that infuriates a certain sort of liberal. I also seems to me, I believe that he is making a case for democracy. There's something about immigration that's resonant because we have no recourse. People move refugees into your neighborhood. It makes, politicians feel virtuous, but you have no say in the matter. Do you think that's part of why this resonates with people?
Absolutely it does. And one of the things, Trump is not being given credit for the fact that last night in that speech, I thought he was very balanced in recognizing and paying respect to the fact that America is a land of immigrants. Yeah. Immigrants have come and done great things, and they've assimilated into the country. And when they do assimilate into the country because they want to love America, be part of America, they bring great assets to us. But it's when they come to get something out of America that we don't have any responsibility. I mean, I think we ought to take a certain NFL quarterback, ask him where he'd like to go, and send him there with all of these liberals who somehow resent this country. If you really are that disgusted with America, just tell us where you'd like for us to send your things.
Well, so about that idiot football player whose name you didn't mention, and I won't either, Tim Kaine, who's not an idiot, who's I think a pretty decent guy running for vice president alongside Hillary Clinton, was asked not that long ago, today or yesterday, about this, and he had an opportunity to kind of stand up for, I don't know, America, the national anthem, basic values that we all share in common, and yet he took a pass and said, well, it's a free country, you can do whatever you want, I'm not going to judge. Why so cowardly? Who is he trying not to offend by not attacking this football player?
I guess the same people that don't want to offend a college kid and provide them a safe zone in case they get frightened by a Halloween costume or by the name of Donald Trump. Look, the reason you stand with the national anthem is not because you're standing and saying, I agree with everything my country does. You're standing as a matter of respect for everything the country represents and for all the people who have given you the freedom to stand there. It's the same thing when you go to a funeral. You don't go in making loud jokes and making a fool of yourself. You go with some level of respect. It has a simple background, Tucker. You and I and most Americans were raised with something called manners. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we always want to behave properly,
exactly,
but we do it because we're civil. And that little quarterback, that twit, that jerk, he ought to stand up for the simple reason that it's a respectful show of his manners.
Exactly.
What he's showing is he doesn't have any.
Well, he's an idiot, so I don't even hold him responsible. It's the rest of the adults in the room. Do you ever get the feeling that the people who run the country don't really believe in the country anymore?
Yeah, I do. And I think they go around the world apologizing for it. They want to talk about every sin we've ever committed, but they fail to point out that this is the country, the light on the hill, that people have been drawn to like a magnet because they know when they get here, they can be free. And one of the great experiences I've had, Tucker, is talking